Hello everyone, and welcome to another issue of our APMG Midday Mentors program. I'm pleased to have with me today Robert and Broeder. Hello Robert.
Hello Stephan, thank you for having me.
Great to have you. Robert and Broeder is the Managing Director of OBM Dynamics. And OBM stands for Organizational Behavior Management. And that's what we're going to talk about today. In particular about the practical appliance of OBM. Now, Robert, organizational behavior management has been around for quite some time, I suppose, and you are stating on your website that it actually has been one of the best kept secrets since the 70s of the last century. Would you like to elaborate on that statement?
Yes, of course. It is true. The first OBM intervention was done in 1959 in a hospital environment where they tried to improve the performance of nursing personnel. And in the 70s, OBM as a way of thinking was picked up, and it mainly spread as a practice in the United States. And early this century, like 2000, 2001, it came across the big ocean and it landed here in the Netherlands, and it was picked up at the VU University in Amsterdam. And that's where I got my training. And from the training, we developed the scheme, the OBM Foundation and Application Level Scheme.
So OBM Dynamics has made the OBM approach kind of a model, kind of a scheme, instead of just having lots of opinions around it. You put this into kind of a framework. Is that correct?
Yes, because what we have learned is that behavioral change requires an understanding of a number of concepts. And what we did was we brought those concepts together. We could call it a scheme in a training program. So we wrote a book, we developed training materials, we developed courses, we trained trainers. And of course we have the consultancy part, which basically proves if that whatever it is that we're teaching actually works.
We know that the organization behavior management, the principles are complementary to all areas we know if it's IT service management or be it project management.
Yeah.
So the good news is for all these visitors here in our show, this is something they seriously should consider as an addendum to their core competencies. What would be interesting to know is if there are any practical appliances about OBM that you are able and willing to share with us.
Yes, there are, and I'm willing to share. So actually your previous remark about being an addition to all the frameworks, which is correct. So for instance, we train people in service management area and in the agile community. It has recently, even if I'm well informed, OBM has been added to the DevOps leadership training. So let's say that the IT community is really picking up on OBM, but it has also been applied in a wide range of industries, from construction work to manufacturing work, healthcare, distribution of consumer goods. So pick any area and you probably will find that there are people applying those OBM principles.
So what kind of examples can you share in detail?
Okay. One example would be that in a huge distribution center, they had this problem that the reach truck drivers were sometimes a little bit careless while operating these machines. And that could cause injury or near-miss situations, but also it causes damaged goods which simply fell off the reach truck. And those damaged goods, of course, cannot be sold anymore. So, well, that's basically a waste of money. And what we did was we improved the behavior of the reach truck drivers to make it more safe. And the safe behaviors have been monitored and reinforced by people that managed at the team leader level, which significantly reduced the number of near misses and accidents, but also increased the amount of goods that went to the stores in good shape. Another example would be the use of personal protection gear in a production environment where there were people exposed to toxic chemicals. And to prevent getting sick, the organization provided all kinds of instructions, but also personal safety gear. And they had already a high level or a high percentage of people that are actually using those gear sets, but also following procedures. But the number was not close to 100%. It was like high in the 80s. So there was still room for improvement. And after an OBM intervention, this site came to a 99% safety rate. Somebody else once said, you don't want to be safe by accident. So you want to be safe on purpose. And so I really like that quote, don't be safe by accident. And let's have another example in the IT industry where we have improved service desk performance at the baseline measurement. Please bear in mind that OBM interventions are highly relying on data. So we had this baseline measurement showing that like 32% of the incoming calls were logged correctly. And after a 6-week OBM intervention, we reached the target of 91%. So that was a huge increase in quality of registration of calls. And the final example I would like to share is a very brief intervention which we did on also call center personnel to change their behavior on the phone. So they were way too familiar with the customers. They needed to be more professional in their communications. So we need to train the new behaviors, and that was simply an intervention that took about 2 weeks. And after a week or two, people start correcting each other. So they were giving feedback on each other to improve communication with the customer on the phone. So those are just a set of examples. And there's also examples in construction sites, municipalities, so governmental bodies, insurance companies, banking, you name it.
And they all could use the OBM principles.
Exactly, because we're talking about humans in a working environment and human behavior. If you want to understand the human behavior, then you have to apply a number of principles which have been found by or discovered by scientific studies and scientific analysis. So in very controlled environment, we found out that certain principles apply. And in applied behavior analysis, those working principles are applied in, for instance, healthcare environments. So where we have learners, and OBM says, okay, if you can apply it to learners, then you can also apply it to organizational settings.
What would you recommend to people when they, given the fact that organization behavior management, behavior of people, is a topic in almost every organization across all industries, as you said, what would you recommend to people, to our visitors?
There's a number of things that I would like to say on this. The first is that you have to take care of your people. If you are a leader and you have a number of people that are, let's say, under your command, then you have the responsibility of the well-being of each and every individual. So treat them like humans and take care of them like they are your own. And the second part is that um, leaders need to look for behaviors and results they want to see more of. Many leaders basically leave their office or their chair only if something goes wrong and they try to correct it. They feel that it's their main contribution to the organization that they correct the wrongs. And what I would like to see is that the leader tries to catch people in the act of doing something right and reinforce that behavior. Because if you're doing it right, you can't be doing it wrong at the same time. So increase performance through reinforcing the behaviors that you would like to see more of. And those behaviors produce the results that you're looking for. So build the behavior and the results will come, as Aubrey Daniels would phrase it.
And how much of that is leading by example?
Leading by example is what we call antecedent behavior. Leading by example is, of course, important, but there's no guarantee that people will follow your example.
It's true.
So behavior is governed in a different way. And with OBM, we teach you how to intervene more effectively, but there is no discussion that leading by example, if you want people to start meetings on time, then you have to be, let's say, first in the room if you're the leader.
Yeah.
And if you don't want people to watch their or check their cell phones during the meeting, then you should leave your cell phone in your pocket and not be checking it yourself.
But I'm also learning there's no guarantee for everybody following that example. I can imagine the opposite's the case. I mean, with a behavior management, I also want to bring people to their own passion and everything that's needed. So leading by example would just be a conversion of the old order and command world, right?
Yeah, partly true. So what we hear a lot is that command and control is old school, and we now should have self-managing teams where people have a lot of freedom. And I think that a good solution would be that there is still some part of command and control, because from my perspective, the leader should take care of vision, mission, strategy. And so set course, set direction, set the boundaries. And what you then should do is, okay, if you have a product team that is accountable for a specific product, that they can come up with, okay, and how are we going to do it? So you won't impose the behaviors, but you would extract those behaviors. And the only thing that you need to do is two things. One is the behavior allowed by our policy, by our corporate values, and by law and regulations? And the second thing that you need to check is, if we do those behaviors more often, are we then going to get closer to the goals, the vision, and the mission that we have set out? And then people can be creative. They can be left alone because they know how to do the job. And the only thing that you need to do is, if you catch them doing the right thing, that you make sure that you reinforce those behaviors more often than that you used to do.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you for being with us today, and hopefully see you soon. There will be a video link in the description of OBM where you can find trainings, who's going to train you. OBM trainings are happening all over the world now. And I'm looking forward to meeting you again very soon, Robert.
Thank you for having me, Stephan. It was a pleasure talking to you. And I would like to thank everybody who has watched this video all the way to the end.